We spend so much of our lives trying to be the hero,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's at work, diving in to save some project that's going completely off the rails, or even in our own lives trying to fix a friend's relationship.
Right.
We just have this deep, almost biological instinct that says, I see a problem, I have to act, and my action is going to save the day.
It's that main character energy. We all have it.
We do.
Okay.
But we've got a stack of sources today that, well, they suggest this instinct, this burning desire to be the good guy who swoops in. It might actually be one of the most destructive forces on the planet.
It's a heavy claim, I know.
Mm.
But we're going to explore why the road to hell isn't just paved with good intentions. It's actually built brick by brick by people who are absolutely convinced they're doing the right thing.
We're calling this the paradox of virtue, and we have a really eclectic mix of research to get through today.
We do. We're looking at lectures from philosopher Alan Watts, a breakdown of legal versus ethical frameworks from the McCone School of Business.
A really heavy 60 minutes interview with the whistleblower reality winner, and a history lesson on polar explorers that completely changed how I think about leadership.
And the mission for this deep dive is pretty simple, even if the answers aren't. We want to figure out why boring might actually be better than heroic, and how you can spot the difference between someone who's just performing virtue and someone who is actually effective.
To kick this all off, we have to start with a fable. It's from Alan Watts. And honestly, it's kind of a horror story disguised as a nature documentary.
It really is. So Watts sets the scene. You've got a monkey, and he's perched high up in a tree, looking down at this rushing river, and he spots a fish.
And the fish is, doing fish things, struggling against the current, darting around. But the monkey, looking at this from his very mammalian perspective, thinks, oh my God, that poor creature, it's drowning.
Exactly. The monkey is kind-hearted. His intentions are perfect. He thinks, I'm going to save a life today. So he climbs down, very carefully scoops the fish out of the water, and places it gently on a dry branch to rescue it.
And we all know what happens next. The fish dies.
The fish dies. But here's the kicker, and this is the point Watts just drills home. The monkey goes to sleep that night feeling fantastic. He thinks, I'm a hero. I saved a life. The outcome was a total disaster, but his internal narrative was pure virtue.
Okay, but hold on. I want to push back on this a little right out of the gate because it sounds a little cynical. I mean, if I see a kid running into traffic and I grab them, I am interfering. I'm imposing my will. But I'm also saving their life. Is Watts just saying we should sit back and let the world burn because we might get it wrong?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Watts isn't saying don't help. He's saying that help is actually interference if you don't understand the system you're messing with. You understand that a kid doesn't belong in traffic.
Right.
But the monkey didn't understand that a fish doesn't belong in the air.
So it's about arrogance. The arrogance of assuming that your version of better is actually better for everyone.
Precisely. And Watts draws this really uncomfortable parallel to cultural imperialism. He talks about the WASP culture, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants historically showing up in places like Australia or the Americas and forcing their political styles, their religion, their clothing on indigenous populations.
The classic, we're civilizing you for your own good mentality.
And then, as Watts points out, the colonizers are just shocked when everyone ends up hating them. They're thinking, but we brought you table manners, we brought you stiff collars. They didn't understand the organism of that society, so their help was just destruction.
And Watts takes this even further with a thought experiment that, I have to say, it broke my brain a little bit. He talks about geneticists.
Right.
Imagine we have the tech and we're getting close to breed any kind of human we want.
Okay, so the geneticists go to the philosophers and they say, give us the specs. What's the perfect human? Should we breed a generation of saints? People who are perfectly non-aggressive, selfless, cooperative?
And my gut reaction is, yeah, that sounds amazing. Imagine a world with no road rage, no war, no greed. Sign me up.
But Watts says, be careful. He calls it the pesticide mass of a million saints.
A pesticide mass.
Think about it like ecology. If you breed a population that has zero aggression, zero selfishness,
Yeah.
what happens if the environment changes? What happens if a predator shows up? Or a virus that requires ruthless isolation measures?
If you've bred out the fight response,
Yeah.
the whole species gets wiped out.
Exactly. It would be like a plague of locusts, just in reverse. A monoculture of virtue is just as fragile as a monoculture of corn. If you don't know what the future holds, and we don't, then declaring one set of traits as the best is basically a death sentence.
It reminds me of that example he used about the rabbits in Australia.
Oh, that's the classic systems failure. European settlers show up in Australia and think, you know what's missing? Rabbits. We need them for food and hunting. A very simple, good intention, right? Solving a food supply issue.
But because Australia didn't have the natural predators to keep the rabbit population in check.
They just exploded. They destroyed the vegetation, which caused soil erosion, which then threatened native species. The good intention triggered a total ecological collapse because the settlers treated the land like a vending machine. Insert rabbits, get food, instead of the complex web of life.
So real virtue, according to Watts, isn't this heavy, self-righteous, I am coming to fix you energy.
No. He says real virtue is unself-conscious. It's like having blue eyes. You don't walk around thinking, I am so virtuous for having blue eyes. You don't try to have them, they just are. Watts calls that, I'm saving the world, energy, inferior virtue. It insists on its own righteousness, and that insistence is what creates all the friction.
Which brings us to probably the most friction-filled area of modern life. The difference between law and ethics. We have a great breakdown on this from the Macomb School of Business, and I think most people just assume that if something is legal, well then it must be ethical.
And that is a really dangerous assumption. Law is codified. It's the baseline of what you can do without getting arrested. Ethics is about justification, what you should do to live in a decent society. The gap between those two is where people get hurt.
The case study they used, man, it is a tough one. Snyder versus Phelps. The Westboro Baptist Church case.
Yeah, this is a textbook example of the road to hell. You have the Westboro Baptist Church. They believe they're doing God's work. They are the monkey saving the fish in their own minds, and they go protest the funeral of a U.S. Marine, Matthew Snyder.
And we're not talking a quiet protest. They're holding these signs with slurs, celebrating the death of a soldier. The father, Albert Snyder, he sues them. And the specific claim was intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Which seems like a slam dunk, right? You're intentionally causing a grieving father pain.
He won in the lower court, but then it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and they ruled in favor of the church, 8-1.
Because legally, under the First Amendment, the church followed all the rules. They stayed on public land, they followed police instructions. The court ruled that protecting robust public debate, even hateful debate, was more important than protecting one citizen from emotional distress.
So legally, they were heroes of the First Amendment, but ethically...
Ethically, it's grotesque.
Yeah.
Justice Alito wrote the dissent, and he really just nailed the ethical argument. He basically said, look, we can have a free society without allowing the brutalization of innocent victims. You can have free speech without crushing a grieving father.
It's that gap again, the right to speak versus the responsibility to not destroy someone. But there was another case in that stack that I found even more disturbing because the good intention was so much closer to home for a lot of us. The story of Dr. V's magical putter.
This one is just tragic. You have a journalist, Caleb Hannon. He's writing a piece about this new revolutionary golf putter, a scientific breakthrough, supposedly.
Yeah. And during his fact-checking, which is what good journalists are supposed to do, he finds out the inventor, this Dr. V, she lied about her credentials. She didn't have the physics degree she claimed.
Right. So he's found a lie. He's pulling on a thread. But then he finds something else. He discovers that Dr. V is a trans woman.
Okay, stop right there. What does her gender history have to do with the aerodynamics of a golf club?
Well, nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. But Hannon convinced himself it was all part of the same story of deception. He framed it as, she lied about the degree, she's lying about her past, therefore this is all relevant to the consumer.
He weaponized the truth.
He did. He told her he was going to publish it, he was going to out her, and his justification was truth in journalism, a noble, virtuous goal. He probably felt like he was protecting the public from a fraud.
And Dr. V committed suicide before the story ever ran.
She did. And the story ran anyway at first. It was only later, after all the backlash, the outlet seemed to realize what they had done. They had prioritized an abstract virtue, the truth, over a real living human being. They were so focused on being good journalists that they completely forgot to be good people.
It just shows how principles can become so dangerous when you detach them from their impact on actual people.
That's the key. Principles are abstract. People are concrete. And when you sacrifice the concrete for the abstract, you're usually in very dangerous territory.
Speaking of dangerous territory, let's talk about national security. We watched that interview with reality winner and talk about a name that feels like it was written by a screenwriter.
It really does. But her story is the perfect modern example of this conflict between I'm saving the country, and I'm destroying the system.
Let's set the scene. It's 2017. The whole vibe is chaotic. There are all these doubts about the 2016 election. Did Russia interfere? Is it all fake news? The public is just completely confused.
And Reality Winner is sitting at her desk at the NSA. She's a linguist, and she sees a top-secret report that proves definitively that Russian military intelligence executed a cyber attack on U.S. voting software.
And she makes a choice. She prints it, stuffs it in her pantyhose, walks out of the building, and mails it to a news outlet.
In her mind, she's the monkey saving the fish. She said she acted out of love for what this country stands for. She thought the public was being gaslit, and she had the one piece of truth that could save them.
But the U.S. government did not see her as a hero.
No. To the state, she's a traitor. She broke the sacred circle of classification, and she was sentenced to over 5 years in federal prison, the longest sentence ever imposed on a civilian for leaking.
And the irony is the leak actually worked. We have testimony from former officials saying that because that document got out, the Election Assistance Commission was able to block the specific email addresses the hackers were using. It helped secure the 2018 midterms.
So she technically saved the fish. But because she violated the organism of the national security state, she had to be crushed. And that interview really highlights the double standard of who gets to be a hero.
Oh, the Petraeus comparison. That made me so angry.
It's just stark. General David Petraeus, the head of the CIA, he gives top-secret notebooks, we're talking names of covert agents, war strategies, to his mistress who was writing his biography. That's a massive breach.
And he gets probation?
A misdemeanor.
Yeah.
No jail time. He's part of the club. He's seen as a good man who made a mistake. Reality Winner is a low-level contractor, an outsider. So when she acts on her conscience, she gets 5 years and struggles with bulimia and self-harm in a cell.
She talked about that feeling of just total abandonment. A chaplain told her, nobody gives a damn about y'all in here.
And that's the cost.
Yeah.
When you act on that impulse to save the day outside of the approved channels, the system strikes back, and it strikes back hard. It does not care about your intentions. It cares about its own preservation.
So we have this pattern emerging. The monkey, the journalist, the whistleblower, they all saw a problem. They felt a rush of, I have to fix this, and they took drastic action.
And in every single case, the focus was on the action itself, the performance of the rescue. Look at me, I am solving the problem.
Which brings us to the action fallacy. This is from the historian Martin Gutman, and he has basically ruined every business book I've ever read about leadership.
He really goes after the hero CEO myth.
Yeah.
And he does it by comparing two polar explorers, Ernest Shackleton and Roald Amundsen.
Now, everyone knows Shackleton. He is the poster boy for crisis management.
Right. The story of the Endurance. 1914. His ship gets trapped in the ice and it's crushed. He and his crew are stranded in Antarctica, and he leads them on this insane, death-defying journey across the ice and open ocean to safety. Everyone survives.
It's a Hollywood movie. It's heroic.
Incredibly heroic. But Gutman asks a really rude question. Why were they stranded in the first place?
And the answer is,
because Shackleton was a mess. He ignored warnings about the ice conditions. He was impatient. He brought the wrong equipment. Gutman calls him the arsonist firefighter. He set the fire, and then we gave him a medal for putting it out.
but we love that story. We love the struggle.
That's the narrative bias. Our brains are wired for drama. A struggle against death is memorable. A spreadsheet is not. Which brings us to our other candidate, Roald Amundsen.
The guy who actually beat everyone to the South Pole.
He beat everyone. He navigated the Northwest Passage. And if you read his journals, they are boring.
Boring.
Nothing happened. He didn't get stuck. He didn't starve. He didn't have to eat his dogs to survive.
Because he planned.
Because he understood the system. He went and lives with the Inuit. He learned that raw fur is better than wool. He learned how to run dogs properly. He studied the currents. He didn't fight the environment. He flowed with it. He's the swimmer who checks the tide charts before jumping in.
And Shackleton is the guy who jumps in the rapids, almost drowns, but manages to drag himself out.
And in the corporate world, who do we promote?
Oh, we promote the Shackleton. 100%. I've seen this my whole career. The manager who sends emails at 2 in the morning, the one who's always putting out fires. Oh my God, the client is angry. Everyone drop everything. We're ordering pizza. We're working all weekend.
They look productive. They look like heroes.
Yeah.
But usually the fire happened because they forgot to send a simple status update 3 weeks ago. They created the crisis.
Meanwhile, the Amundsen manager...
The Amundsen manager goes home at 5 p.m. The project is on time. The client is happy. There is no drama. And because there's no drama, nobody thinks they're working hard.
Oh, well, that project must have been easy.
Exactly. It must have been easy. Look how smooth it went. We punish competence because it looks like inactivity. And we reward incompetence because it looks like action.
That is the action fallacy. We confuse motion with progress, and we confuse stress with importance.
And to bring it all back to Watt Shackleton was the monkey. He interfered with the Antarctic without really respecting it. Amundsen respected the organism. He adapted himself to the world, rather than trying to force the world to adapt to him.
So if we're trying to synthesize all of this, the geneticist, the journalist, the explorer, it really seems like the root problem is the ego, the need to feel like we are the ones making the difference.
It's the shift from being good to doing good. Doing good is so often a performance. I am the savior. But being good is often invisible. It's preventing the problem before it ever starts. It's refraining from publishing the story because it hurts someone. It's prepping the dog sled so you don't die in the first place.
It's boring.
It's beautifully boring.
We have a quote to wrap this up from Viktor Frankl. He wrote, "Man's search for meaning survived the Holocaust. He knew a thing or two about human nature."
He said, freedom is only part of the story and half of the truth. Freedom is in danger of degenerating into mere arbitrariness unless it is lived in terms of responsibleness.
And then he had a suggestion for the American landscape.
He said, I recommend that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast be supplemented by a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast.
A statue of responsibility. That really lands. We are so obsessed with our freedom to act, our freedom to protest, to publish, to explore, but we forget the responsibility for the outcome.
The Statue of Liberty is holding a torch. It's flashy, it's visible, it's heroic. A statue of responsibility. That would probably just be a statue of someone sitting quietly reading the instruction manual before they touch the button.
Not a great tourist attraction, but maybe a better model for life.
I'd visit it.
So here's the challenge for you listening today. We want you to find your inner Shackleton and, well, maybe tell him to sit down for a minute. Look at your work, your relationships. Where are you manufacturing a crisis just so you can feel that rush of solving it?
Or where are you trying to save someone, a colleague, a partner, without actually understanding what they need? Are you the monkey about to lift the fish out of the water?
Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is absolutely nothing, or at least something really, really boring.
Be an Amundsen.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.